4 spine-chilling truckers' tales, terrifying encounters with sinister, haunted forces revealed. The sun dipped below the horizon, leaving a blanket of darkness shrouding the highway like a predator stalking its prey. 4 truckers, each encased in their metal beasts, were set to take on the eerie Midwest, where shadows lurk and whispers echo. Jack, a veteran with worry lines carved deep into his face, fiddled with his phone. Every buzz sent a pulse of dread through him. Was that his wife, her voice broken with fear, wondering how they'd pay the bills? Every mile felt heavier. Maria gripped her wheel tightly in her fresh new pickup, fighting the anxiety that gnawed at her insides. Her kids were waiting at home, and each roadside neon sign flickered like a specter in the night. Each pulse of light was a reminder that the world was vast, but she felt so small, so exposed. Then there was Lee, a quiet man with a nervous trait of glancing in the rearview mirror, his heart racing at the sight of an old, rusted truck lurking at a deserted rest stop. It taunted him, reflecting a chilling sense of familiarity, as if something harkened from a past he couldn't shake. And then there was Carla, whose skin crawled as she overheard sudden whispers at the gas station about the mysterious highwayman, a figure said to prey on unsuspecting travelers. With each mile marker passed, the freedom of the open road transitioned into a stifling silence. Jack's engine choked and he pulled over, panic fluttering in his chest. Everything felt wrong, like eyes were watching him from the abyss of the dark. An unknown number flashed on his screen. It couldn't be her. But then he heard it, his wife's voice warped and desperate, crackling through the line, begging him to come home. Miles away, Maria's breath caught in her throat at the diner. The fluorescent lights pulsed overhead as she filled her tank. The officer who approached her had an unsettling grin that seemed stretched too tight. As he questioned her about her kids, the shadows surged, engulfing her in unease. His uniform felt off, glinting with dishonesty under the stark lights. The dread bubbled as their paths converged at the diner, where they shared their experiences, hearts pounding and eyes widened with fear. It became clear they weren't just victims of the night. There was more, an unraveling thread of betrayal tying their fears together, like a sinister web spun by someone who smiled at them once upon a time. Each confession added to the tension hanging thick in the air. They were not alone in their nightmares. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As they grappled with harrowing stories, the diner door swung open, a gust of wind howling through the stale air, sending chills down their spines. Then a crash, dishes shattered, plunging them into darkness. Something whispered through the abyss, a promise of danger lurking just beyond the threshold. There, in the thickening shadows, they suddenly understood. These weren't mere tales spun from folklore, but living nightmares clawing at their sanity. In that moment, as the door swung wildly, revealing figures cloaked in darkness, they had to decide: fight or flee from the demons that haunted their paths. "What do we do?" Carla screamed, but her voice was lost in the chaos. As their breath quickened and shadows stretched, a question loomed larger than life. Could they decipher friend from foe before it was too late? Painful, gut-wrenching silence surrounded them, and then an eerie, soft whisper drifted through the thick blackness. "Join us." It was an invitation or a cruel joke. The air crackled with dread, leaving them teetering on the edge of an unknown horror. The darkness swallowed the diner like a maw, hungry and insatiable. The flicker of dim lights barely penetrated the gloom, as if the very bulbs quivered in fear. Jack, heart pounding violently in his chest, forced himself to breathe. "Stay together," he shouted, his voice shaking. The word felt hollow against the oppressive weight of widening shadows. They huddled, eyes darting toward the figure slowly entering the diner. Shadows shifting, silently weaving towards them. Were they just customers, or something far more sinister? Lee gripped a salt shaker so tight his knuckles turned white, while Maria's hand trembled, inching towards her phone, desperate for a lifeline. The door slammed shut, the noise reverberating like a gunshot, leaving everyone paralyzed. The figures lingered, their faces obscured by darkness. Fear churned in the air, heavier than any mystery. "Is anyone here?" the silhouette of a man called out, voice grating like nails on glass. Carla stifled a scream, heart racing as she registered the menace laced in the stranger's tone. Jack's instinct screamed to flee, but his feet felt anchored to the ground. "What do you want?" he demanded, forcing the words through parched lips. Another figure stepped forward. Silhouetted against the light, it revealed a crooked smile beneath hollow eyes. "Just a chat," said the figure, voice soft yet slicing through the tension. "So lonely out here on the roads." Outside, the wind howled, swirling leaves and debris like specters. Inside, there was only suffocating silence, punctuated by the rattle of dishes. Jack glanced at his companions, who exchanged panicked glances. They were trapped, no way to escape. The shadows had them cornered. The diner felt like it was closing in, walls pulsing with hostility. "What about our stories?" Maria blurted, desperation mingling with anger. "You here?" The intruder chuckled, and the sound bounced ominously around the diner. "Stories are the soul of the damned." Another figure, a woman cloaked in tattered layers, stepped forward, her expression unreadable. "You shared yours. Now it's our turn." Jack exchanged a knowing glance with Carla. No more games. They had to find an exit. "We aren't afraid of you," Carla shouted, her voice rising, breaking the stifling atmosphere. "You think you can scare us?" The grim figures laughed, low and haunting, echoing through the shadowy corners. "Oh, we don't need to scare you. You bring your own fear. You took the highway, didn't you? You chose this road." Lee felt a surge of memories flooding back, igniting his haze of shock. Somewhere in the back of his mind, a warning he ignored. He remembered the old truck at the rest stop, something ancient stirring within him. "What do you want from us?" he croaked. Their laughter deepened, warping into a chorus that intertwined with the whispers of the wind, teasing his sanity. "It's not what we want, little trucker. It's what you need to discover." Suddenly, the lights flickered briefly before plunging them into total darkness. Heartbeats quickened, panic rising like bile. The darkness wrapped around them like a living entity, choking out their breath and drowning their screams. Each of them felt something icy slither past as the shadows grew bolder, pressing forward. "Look inside," the whispers crescendoed, vibrating in their skulls, pushing against their sanity. "Find your truth or perish." As the figures faded into the gloom, Jack's heart raced faster. Visions of his wife flashed in his mind. "I can't lose anyone," he yelled against the whirl of darkness. Suddenly, a blinding light pierced the chaos, revealing the twisted faces around them, grinning and hungry. Jack felt his feet move against his will, stepping toward the figures, drawn in by a force he couldn't comprehend. In that moment, everything held its breath. And then he heard her voice again, clear and desperate from beyond the void. "Help me. Come home." A decision hung in the balance. Should he heed the whispering shadows or follow the desperate plea echoing in his heart? As the light flickered out once more, a new sound emerged from the chaos, a distant revving of engines. But whose? The unknown loomed larger as they faced the decision of their lifetime. Would they delve deeper into the dark or fight their way back to the light? Jack's heart seemed to ricochet against his ribs. The sick, sweet scent of fear flooded the diner, making him dizzy. He could barely see Carla, Lee, and Maria beside him, shadows of desperation and determination clinging to their faces. "What now?" Lee whispered, his voice barely a breath, trembling. Those figures, shapes wearing human skins, still hovered at the edges of sight, like a nightmare escaping into daylight. The woman in rags lingered, and her gaze pierced through the dark. "The road asks for travelers," she said softly, a chilling intimacy lacing her words. "Who will share their piece of the story?" Lee, sweating and pale, instinctively stepped back. "We're not sharing anything!" he shouted, his voice stretched thin. He turned to Maria, eyes wide with an urge to flee. "We need to—" "Stop!" Carla interrupted, her voice fierce enough to slice through the suffocating air. "What's this really about? This isn't a game!" The shadows seemed to pulse, savoring the tension, drawing closer between the tables. "They're not here to play," Jack said, his own voice barely louder than a whisper. They turned to Maria, eyes wide with an urge to flee. "We need to—" "Stop!" Carla interrupted, her voice fierce enough to slice through the suffocating air. "What's this really about? This isn't a game!" The shadows seemed to pulse, savoring the tension, drawing closer between the tables. "They're not here to play," Jack said, his own voice barely louder than a whisper. "They want something from us." He could now hear the distant growl of an engine outside, growing louder, a rhythmic thrum merging with the gathering dread inside the diner. "Take a seat," the crooked man suggested, gesturing to an empty booth that felt like a trap waiting to spring. "It's easier this way." The malicious intent hung heavy in the air, and with every passing second, the shadows escalated. "What if we don't?" Maria's words were defiant, though her hands trembled. "What if we just want to leave?" "Ah," the woman cooed, stepping forward, her elongated fingers tracing the edge of the table. "Leaving, that's a choice, but it comes with its own price. Each story has a consequence, a choice that leads to fate. Will it be light or dark, life or death?" A bone-deep chill coursed through Jack as he recalled the stolen moments of laughter and the heat of Carla's hand in his. Suddenly, the diner's lights pulsed erratically, casting brief, frantic shadows across the walls. "Something's coming!" Lee gasped, his instincts on high alert. "We can't stay here!" The engine outside roared to life as if responding to his words. The figures turned their heads sharply, listening to the sound as if it were their lifeblood. Jack began to shake, a primal instinct urging him to flee, but where to go? The dread-laden air felt alive, pressing against him. Then Carla moved, stepping toward the door they had all but forgotten, grasping the handle. Hope bloomed into their withering hearts. "Let's go, now," she urged. But when she pulled, the door wouldn't budge, solid and unyielding as if it had fused with the walls. "Did you think you could escape?" the man with the crooked smile hissed, eyes glinting with malevolence. "It's all connected, after all. Each turn you take again leads back to us." "Let us out!" Maria shouted, panic consuming her. The shadows shifted, swelling like a dark tide, and Jack could feel them pull against his thoughts, whispering horrible truths, clawing at his sanity. And then they heard it, a low, rumbling growl, building intensity like an incoming storm, an engine revving harder and harder. It sounded like it was advancing on the very divide between their hope and the lurking darkness that surrounded them. "Why won't you let us go?" Jack yelled, desperate and furious, as icy fingers seemed to wrap around his throat. "Because it is your time to uncover your truths," the woman replied, a knowing smile lighting her face. "Only then do you escape." The engine roared outside, drowning out the whispers, thrumming like a heartbeat just outside the diner. Would it burst in, or would they discover the truth that bound them there? In that moment, a deafening crash erupted at the entrance, and the walls quaked, the diner seeming to tremble under the weight of the external force. Jack's blood ran cold. Were they about to be freed, or was this the dark climax they had so desperately feared? As the dust settled, not a single shadow moved. A lone figure emerged, darkly silhouetted against the muted glow. The twisted smiles turned toward this newcomer, and in that instant, Jack realized with horror what they feared the most was now about to show itself. The door flung open wide, and the shadows recoiled. What lay beyond that threshold could be their salvation or their doom. Would they find a way to escape the unyielding darkness, or would it claim them one by one after all? The figure stepped into the diner, silhouetted against the harsh light spilling from the outside world. A chill skated down Jack's spine. He couldn't make out the details, but the presence felt suffocating, thick, like smoke curling around his lungs. "What now?" Lee murmured, his voice trembling as he took a step back, eyes darting between the figure and the shadows that had come alive around them. Carla reached out, grabbing Jack's arm, her grip tight. It was as if she feared he might disappear into the darkness. "Stay together," Jack urged, though he could hear the tremor in his own voice. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. The shadows recoiled like animals sensing danger. The newcomer wore a trucker's cap pulled low over their face, obscuring any hint of identity. But there was something in the way they moved, a measured calm that contrasted sharply with the chaos enveloping them. "Ever think about the stories the road tells?" the traveler suddenly asked, their voice gravelly, leaving a ghost of an echo in the air. Every mile traveled harbors secrets, truths hidden just below the surface. They stepped closer, revealing worn leather boots and the oppressive weight of countless journeys written in the lines of their face. "Who are you?" Jack snapped, trying to sound braver than he felt. The figure chuckled softly, a sound that sliced through the thick atmosphere. "Just someone who's seen what the shadows crave. They want more than stories. They feed on fears, regrets, every unchosen path." Jack shivered as he felt the gaze of the shadows, predatory, waiting. "Spare us the poetry," Maria retorted, anger igniting her shaky voice. "We want to leave." "Leave?" The traveler's laughter echoed, unmasking a chilling sense of familiarity. "You think you can outrun what dwells within your minds? This isn't just a game, it's a reckoning." The diner's lights flickered violently, and for a split second Jack saw them, the shadows contorting, morphing. It felt like a trap closing in, and every heartbeat echoed in his ears like a war drum. "What do you mean?" Lee stepped closer, his voice trembling. "What did you see?" "They were in the woods," Sarah stammered, a vacant look spreading across her features. "They showed me everything, the choices we made, the people we lost. It was suffocating. I thought I could outrun it." Her voice cracked, fading into a whisper. The shadows pulsed, vibrating erratically, as if in sync with her words. Each confession unleashed new horrors, feeding their dark appetite. "Leave her," Maria snapped, her fear igniting into anger. "She doesn't know what she's talking about. We need to get out." But Jack stood rooted, fixated on Sarah. Maybe she does. Did you say they're coming for us? The shadows, Sarah breathed, waving a feeble hand toward the door. They're closing in. When I ran, I saw them take people. They said we would join them if we wouldn't face the truth. As if summoned, the lights blink again, plunging them into cold darkness before booming back to life. In that flickering illumination, Jack noticed the diner's windows, shadows pressed against them, whispering like a storm brewing just beyond their safety. Suddenly, an unearthly wind gusted through the diner, scattering napkins and rattling cups. A haunting symphony of disembodied voices filled the air, each one echoing the regrets, fears, scattered dreams swirling within Jack's head. "You won't escape," the traveler warned, stepping back into the light, eyes locked fiercely on Jack. "You'll have to choose sooner or later. Ignoring the darkness won't save you." "Choose what?" Jack barked, rebellious panic surging in him. "There's nothing left to—" "There's always a choice," the traveler interrupted, standing tall. "You must confront what's been hidden deep inside. Only then can you break the cycle." The temperature tumbled in the diner, creating an icy grip around their hearts. Carla shivered uncontrollably, staring toward the kitchen door, where another shadow flickered. "What is that?" she gasped, pointing with trembling fingers. Just then, the figure stepped into the light. It was a man with a face shrouded in darkness, an unsettling familiarity that sent a chill down Jack's spine. A cold dread washed over him, invoking memories he longed to forget. "Who's this?" Lee asked, his voice barely a whisper. The ghostly figure grinned, his smile splitting the darkness like a knife. "I'm just here to remind you, every choice shapes your story. Will you finally face me, or will you let the shadows decide your fate?" Time stopped. The shadows surged closer, drawn by the tension in the room, ready to envelop them all. Jack's heart raced. They stood on a precipice, a moment of truth spinning wildly around them. The traveler nodded toward Sarah. "She's seen it. It's time you all remember." As Sarah trembled, her eyes darting between the malevolent figure in the shadows, Jack felt an insatiable pull. He had to know the truth. He had to. Flaring pressure built in the air, shifting around them like a vengeful storm. The shadows screeched, their hungry voices urging him toward the doorway. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown, racing him toward an inevitable revelation. Just then, the shadows surged forward, snapping like vines, their grasp tightening around Jack's arms, dragging him toward the opening. The diner trembled, walls bending under the weight of the awakening truth. As Jack clawed against the pull, the traveler shouted, "You have to fight it! Remember who you are!" But how could he remember when the shadows were consuming him, ready to erase his very essence? The diner's floor cracked beneath their feet, and the shadows writhed more ferociously, threatening to swallow them whole. Jack steeled himself against the pain. He wouldn't give in. But as he reached desperately for the door, a flicker of light caught his eye, a vision of the past beckoning him closer, a shadowy glimpse of the choices he feared. What stood behind that door, waiting to unveil his dark truth? Would he dare to step into the unknown, or would the shadows absorb him entirely? Jack's fingers scraped against the doorframe, desperation clawing at his soul. The shadows hissed, a cacophony of broken dreams and tormented regrets, eager to reclaim him. He could feel their cold breath, the weight of them sliding over his skin like oil. "Let go!" he bellowed, voice hoarse. But their grip was a vice, intense and unyielding. Panic surged anew as their whispers turned into a frenzied roar. "You belong to us! You cannot escape!" "No!" Jack shouted again, summoning every ounce of resolve he had. The fleeting flicker of light grew brighter behind the door. It swirled with promises of clarity and dread. With a sudden burst of strength, he wrenched one arm free and slashed through the darkness, making his way toward the threshold. "Jack!" Sarah screamed, her voice drenched in terror. He turned just in time to see her being pulled back, her expression filled with horror as Tommy advanced toward her. "Fight it!" she cried, reaching for him, eyes wide with frantic determination. The shadows twisted around her, dragging her into their depths. "Join us, Sarah. Regrets await," they hissed, their voices sultry and twisted. Jack's heart shattered. With a desperate lunge, Jack threw himself into the doorway, propelled by blind courage and flickers of hope. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, everything transformed. The diner's darkness exploded into blinding light. Suddenly, he was standing in a field, a sun-drenched vista that felt warm and safe, yet eerily out of place. Laughter resonated around him, childlike and cheerful. He turned, and there they were, faces from his past, smiling and free. Tommy, but not aged. A version of Tommy untouched by shadows. "Jack, come play," a voice called, and a small, familiar figure ran towards him, arms wide. Little Sarah, just a kid, filled with life. "No!" Jack shouted, heart pounding. He stumbled back. "This isn't real." Yet the allure was intoxicating. He could feel the old weight, the guilt, ease off his shoulders. The wind rustled through the grass, carrying the scent of summer. But just as quickly, the shadows slithered at the edges of his vision, whispering his sins. "Don't you want this?" they murmured. "They can stay forever young. They're waiting for you. All you have to do is step back." "No," Jack grit his teeth, shaking his head fiercely. He couldn't go back to that. He didn't belong among those innocent smiles while shadows mirrored his soul. With sheer will, he pushed through the disorientation, forcing himself to look at the fleeting figures of joy, pooling his strength to turn from them. But the shadows crept closer, impatient, bitterly whispering his failures until he felt the ground shift beneath him. The laughter faded, and with it, the light dimmed. He was back in the diner, but everything was wrong. The walls pulsed alive, and Tommy stood before him, grinning wider than ever. "Welcome back," he rasped, sinister glee dripping from every word. Around them, the diner morphed. It stretched and twisted, turning into a twisted carnival. Shadows coalesced into creatures, lurking in every corner, their eyes glinting with hunger. Jack's fight began anew. "Escape isn't the answer," Tommy taunted, stretching a hand forward. "Embrace the loop. You can't outrun yourself." Jack steadied his breath. No more running. This time he would confront his demons, whatever they were hiding. "Stop!" he roared. "I won't give in." The shadows paused, intrigued, whispers quieting down. A challenge loomed in the air. With a rush of resolve, Jack took a step toward Tommy and the surrounding horrors, his breath quickening with audacity. "Let's see what your shadows really want from me." What revelations awaited in the depths of despair? Was he ready to uncover the darkest corners of his soul? The answers lay tantalizingly ahead, hidden behind the sinister whispers that clung to the walls. Jack's pulse quickened as he approached Tommy, the contours of the carnival warping in response to his newfound determination. The air was thick with tension, as shadows danced in cruel delight, their shapes shifting with every flicker of fear that coursed through him. A low rumble of laughter echoed in the depths, growing in intensity, a chorus of malice that surrounded him. Tommy's grin broadened, an unsettling mix of nostalgia and wickedness. "You've lost your way, Jack. The answers you seek aren't found in the light. They are here, in the shadows, where the truth festers." Each word dripped with derision. The once familiar diner was now a twisted carnival. every booth and counter warped into grotesque forms, echoing the worst memories of his life: betrayal, love lost, and the ghostly faces of those he'd failed. Jack's eyes darted around, hunting for signs of Sarah. "Where is she?" His voice came out cold, filled with urgency. "Isn't this what you've always wanted? To save them? To escape?" The shadows swirled in response, coalescing into a silhouette of Sarah's youthful figure, her face bright and innocent. "Just step closer." "No!" Jack shouted, a vein of rage threading through his despair. But a sliver of doubt crept into his mind. What if this was the salvation he'd been searching for? He gritted his teeth, fighting the siren call of the offered hope. "No," he repeated, stepping forward, shaking his head. "You won't break me." Tommy's laughter resonated like thunder, rolling over the chaos. "Break you? Oh, Jack, my dear friend, you're already broken. You just haven't accepted it yet." With every word, the air thickened, his surroundings warping further. The once vibrant carnival began to decay. Colors faded, clothes turned to rags, and laughter contorted into cries of despair. Jack could feel the ground trembling beneath him, as if the very earth was alive with contempt. Behind Tommy, figures emerged from the shadows, swarming like a tide of darkness. Familiar faces, both loved and loathed, friends turned enemies, and loved ones lost, tortured in anguish, reaching out for him with bony fingers. "Come back, Jack! You left us!" they wailed in twisted unison. "Stop! Get back!" He stumbled back, pushing his hands forward in defense, panic lacing his words. Suddenly, the ground split open, revealing a chasm of darkness that pulsed with unseen horrors. Each heartbeat sent waves of horror coursing through Jack's veins, reminding him of the ultimate price of his naivete. "Face your fears, Jack," Tommy taunted, stepping forward, the shadows behind him morphing into monstrous forms. "They will consume you if you don't." Jack's heart raced. He felt the shadows whispering once more, drawing closer, threatening to engulf him. He clenched his fists, searching for strength within that he wasn't sure he had. He wouldn't let Tommy win. All those lost, Sarah, the little girl, the past, were rallying in his mind. "Stop hiding! I'm not afraid of you!" The shadows paused, a moment of silence stretching out as if they hesitated. Jack seized his chance, digging deep into his own fears. The faces, the memories, all swirling within him. It was a chaotic storm, but he could use it. "I see you! I know you!" he yelled, the power of acceptance surging through him. "You can't haunt me forever!" The shadows writhed, screaming. For the first time, Jack felt a brief flicker of hope amidst the turmoil. But was it enough? Would he conquer his past, or would it awaken something worse? As the shadows shrieked, Jack faced the cacophony, ready to fight, his heart pounding with dread and defiance. And then he heard it, a low whisper creeping in, veiled in pure malice, summoning him deeper into the darkness. "Join us, Jack. The real game has just begun." What awaited him in that pitch-black abyss? Jack could feel the weight of that whispered invitation, heavy like wet wool wrapped around him. He stood at the edge of the chasm, his heart thundering against his ribcage. Each chorus of laughter echoed like nails on a chalkboard, clawing at his sanity and pulling him toward the abyss. "Join us," the voice slithered through the air, translucent and seductive. It beckoned to him, promising an end to his struggle, a release from torment. But he couldn't allow the darkness to claim him. "Stop! Just stop!" he yelled, clenching his teeth. The monsters around him would not be dismissed so easily. They closed in, their faces a grotesque reflection of his past, twisted into mockery. Tommy moved forward, his smile diabolical. "You think you can resist, Jack? Look around you. They're here because of you. You've left them behind, and now they want you back. Jack's eyes darted to every shadowy face. People he had loved, lost, failed. They tumbled through memories both dark and bright, their expressions alternating between despair and rage. He gasped as his old friend Mike reached out, pleading through cracked lips. "You could have saved us, Jack. The blood, it's on your hands." "No," Jack screamed, backing up against a warped booth that teetered under his weight. His vision blurred with tears, hot and angry, but he couldn't show weakness. "You're not real. You're just fear, just shadows." The ground throbbed, the edge of the chasm vibrating as if the very world around him was in agony. The shadows writhed with outrage, the faces intensifying in torment. "Fear you cannot escape. You can't outrun us," they shrieked in unison, their voices a chilling symphony of horror. With a sudden jolt, Jack remembered the stories he'd heard about those who had faced the dark forces. They often spoke of a truth hidden in their own sins. Holding his breath, he dug deeper into himself, grasping for ghosts of strength. He couldn't let the darkness win. His heart, heavy in his chest, throbbed with the realization that acceptance was this battle's only weapon. "I know what I did," he shouted, his voice trembling with a mix of fury and fear. "I wasn't strong enough. I can't change that, but I'm not going to let it drown me." The cacophony surged, twisting and rising, becoming a choking fog of despair. Jack felt the overwhelming weight of his unresolved guilt pushing down on him. But within him, a flicker of fire sparked, igniting something deep within. "I won't be your puppet. I'm done living in regret." The shadows recoiled from his words, arching away as if burned. Tommy's face darkened, the mirth replaced with a thunderous rage. "You think you're free? That you can just defy the very darkness that made you? You're nothing without your past." "Maybe," Jack replied, grounding himself against the tumultuous tide of grief and anger. "But I'm not letting it control me." He stepped toward the gaping void, feeling the cool air swirl around him like a tempest. And just like that, muscles tensing, he lunged forward, determined to confront the cauldron of shadows. As he fell into the depths of darkness, a cold grip wrapped around him, whispering taunts from every direction. "This is your reckoning, Jack. What lies here is far worse than any memory." In that moment, with his heart racing and dread wrapping tight around him, Jack had to decide. Would he face whatever awaited him in that darkness, or would he surrender to the bitter past that clawed at him? "Brace yourself," he murmured, just as he disappeared into the mouth of darkness. What awaited him on the other side? Would he conquer the shadows or succumb to their twisted embrace? Jack felt a sudden jolt, as if an unseen hand had pulled him through the void. He emerged from the darkness, breathless, into a scene both hauntingly familiar and unsettling. The diner was gone, but he stood in a twisted recreation of his childhood home, each corner alive with echoes of laughter and pain. The floor creaked beneath him. He could almost hear the whispers of his family, fragments of arguments laced with love. His mother scolding him for reckless choices, his father frustrated over missed opportunities, the laughter of friends who had long been lost. It enveloped him in a shroud of longing mixed with regret, a painful and poignant reminder of his past. "Welcome back," Tommy's voice echoed around him, warm yet sinister. "This is the playground of your memories, Jack. The truths you've tried to silence will scream until you acknowledge them." Jack turned slowly, his heart heavy. "What do you want?" "Just a little chat," Tommy said, stepping closer, visible now in all his malevolent glory. The more you resist, the louder your demons become. Tell me, what do you see? Desperation clawed at Jack's insides. These are just memories. They can't hurt me anymore. Oh, but they can, Tommy purred, shadows flickering at his heels. You've buried these truths, but you must dig them up. Face them or be lost in this cycle forever. They want to be acknowledged, Jack. They crave your recognition. The walls began to pulse with energy. Figures started to form. The faces of those he had let down danced across the surface, eyes filled with accusation, mouths moving silently in lament. "No, get away!" Jack shouted, attempting to close his eyes against them, but their faces burned brightly in his mind. He felt Sarah's hand trying to reach for him, urging him to move toward the light. The innocence he had abandoned fought against the shadows that clung to him. "You think you can escape your reality?" Tommy laughed, the sound resonating like ominous thunder. "You can't. You're bound to the choices that birth these nightmares." Jack staggered, overwhelmed. The kitchen faded, morphing into the dark alley where he had lost his best friend that fateful night. Memories flooded back, echoes of laughter turned to screams, promises broken. "Stop!" Jack cried, the reality hitting him like icy water. He recalled how his inaction had caused pain. He had fled in fear rather than face that consequence. "I can't change what happened," he yelled, rage surging. "But I can control how I move."
"Forward!" The shadows hesitated, momentarily stilled by his declaration. Tommy's face twisted into something almost resembling respect. "A valiant effort, but you're still running from your truth." "No more running!" Jack shouted, his voice smashing through the thick gloom. He took a decisive step toward Tommy. Each shadow shifted, recoiling as his confidence solidified. "I see you!" he exclaimed, fervently now. "You're nothing without my fear." With that, the diner's facade peeled away, revealing a vast horizon, illuminated by a fierce dawn. The groans of his past echoed in the distance, but they began to fade into the light. Hope surged within him, igniting every fiber of his being. "Find her," a voice murmured through the treacherous winds, Sarah urging him on, her sincerity anchored deep within him. He could feel her being swept up in the light's embrace, guiding him. "Face the memories," Jack's voice boomed, unwavering. "I acknowledge the hurt I caused, but I won't let it define my future." The churning shadows howled in dissent, tightening around him as if trying to reclaim their hold. But Jack felt buoyed by newfound strength. The ethereal grasp of regret waned with each truth he accepted. As he pressed forward, the shadows writhed, dissipating against the encroaching dawn. Each step chased the darkness further back. The figures of his past mingled, empathy blooming amidst the scars. "Since when do you ask for forgiveness?" Tommy's voice shook as he stumbled back, shadows retreating from Jack's roar of triumph. "I won't let you bind me," Jack shouted, his heart blazing. "I claim my story now. Hope is my weapon, and I choose to live in it." With one final push, he lunged toward the golden light. The darkness broke apart like a shattered mirror, and as he tumbled through, he grasped for Sarah's hand, finally emerging into the soft glow of dawn. The real world was alive, vibrant, full of promises waiting to be claimed. He breathed in the fresh air, filled with the sounds of life, the weight of guilt lifting. The warmth of the sun wrapped around him, urging him forward. Suddenly, Jack woke up on the side of the road, the diner nowhere in sight. The warmth of sunlight poured over him, illuminating the path before him. He sighed, relief flooding his senses. Yesterday's horrors faded to whispers on the wind. As he climbed into his rig, he glanced at the passenger seat, almost expecting to see Sarah sitting there, and he felt the spark of determination ignite. Today was a new journey, And this time, he would drive forward, embracing each mile and every story that lay ahead. He looked back at the empty road ahead, feeling a weight lift from his chest. Something had shifted. He was free. As he revved the engine, a smile crept onto his face. It was time to rediscover the open road. If you enjoyed this journey of hope and redemption, then this is your moment. Subscribe immediately to our channel so
you don't miss out on exclusive, heartwarming stories like this. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Flood the comment section with your reactions, share your thoughts about Jack's journey, and tell us if you think he'll stay on the bright path. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Only the true fans understand how important it is to support the channel through these actions.